Okay, so I've got quite an interesting one today. I've got this VW Polo 2005, and if you unlock it and then lock it from this side of the car, there's absolutely no problem at all. This does not have a remote central locking, you've got to put the key in. All the locks lock and unlock from this side of the car, no problem. If, however, you go to the other side of the car, if you unlock the car, everything works fine and all unlocks, no problem. But when you go to lock, all but the passenger side lock. For some reason, the passenger side is not locking when the key is in the driver's side. Obviously, you could then open the door, lock it, close the door and it's locked, but that's obviously a hassle. We want to fix the problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is read the fault codes. Okay, options and test. Interface found, which is great. Save. Car's too old for auto scan, so I'll have to select control module. Company database for comfort system. Interesting. Okay, so just the one fault code. That's interesting. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just remove this door card. To do that, we need to remove this window winder here. Obviously, you may have an electric window on yours, in which case you just pry the little switch out using a silicone pry tool, which we're going to be using a lot of today anyway. But yeah, literally this one here, it just pops out like that. So once that's out, then what you need to do is you need to slide this across. I think the easiest way to do that is going to be with a silicone tool, and you just sort of get it in the gap there and just sort of edge it across a little bit, and eventually you get enough on it, it just slides out. And it's just got these three sort of tubes in there that hold it in with just pure friction. That's all it is. Then you've got these two Torx bolts. I think they're T30s. Right, so yeah, this is a T30 Torx bit. Okay, so those two are out. And now there's 3 or 4 bolts under here that you need to get out, and they're a T20. Okay, so that's it. So the door card's now just purely held in by a few plastic rivets. So I think there's 3 or 4 of them. They're down this side and then all the way down this side as well. And really the only realistic way of getting those rivets released is by using these. This is a silicone pry bar set. So we'll just pull it out at the side and they'll start to pop out as we go. There you go, all released. And now as you remove it, just bear in mind that the door handle here will still be connected to the handle release mechanism, and you will have to lift it upwards because of that as well. So just bear that in mind. Lift it upwards and then turn it upside down, and the door handle you can simply unhook, and you'll find that the speaker spacer there falls out as well, nothing to worry about. So you can now put the door card to one side. Okay, so this is an early model in this particular marque, so we're quite lucky we've got bolts holding on this door panel protector here. If yours is a later model, you're going to have pop rivets, which is going to mean unfortunately you're going to need to drill them out and then use new pop rivets, or potentially use self-tapping bolts to replace them. Now, the other thing to note is here that as I remove the door card, a few of the rivets that are holding that door card in have stayed in place in the door, which is quite common. Nothing to worry about, you just pull them out. There you go. So you can use 2 of these to sort of pry them open. They're quite an unusual kind of rivet. So you sort of push in to lock, and that expands this bit out to lock it in place. And then, as I just did there, you can put one bit on the inside, one bit on the outside, and then sort of pry them apart to get it unlocked like that. There she goes. Nice and easy. Okay, and that's all the rivets that were stuck in the door. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the window glass from the window riser. Okay. So the way to do that is just in these rubber bungs. To be honest, I'll take the whole thing out. They've got a little window, you can open them up, but I'll just take the whole thing out. Take these out, both of them, and then temporarily just put the window winder back on, or your switch mechanism back in. That's it. Right, there we go. Check that it winds okay, and then just wind it down until you can see the two bolts through there. And then I'm going to do this by hand. I'm not going to use the power driver for this. You just want to loosen them off, you don't want to take them out. Yeah, that's pretty loose. There we go, nice and loose. And now wind it back up, and you'll find it will struggle to go in correctly, so do make sure that it's pulled this way. So make sure it's pulled towards here as it goes up, and then you'll find it will actually go into place properly. There we go. Okay, now that that's up, we're going to put some tape on there. Okay, so now that's secured, we can go ahead and remove this again. Okay, so we're just going to release the actual lock mechanism that the key goes into, because it's attached to the lock actuator behind there by a little sort of wire thread, so we need to release this in order to remove this, if that makes sense. Now it's held in by a kind of weird sort of clasp kind of clamp, which is secured by a T20 bolt. You're going to need a long T20 bit in there. I'll show you when I've taken it out what it looks like so you can see what you're getting at. But you need to undo it by about 7 turns, something like that. And that should release the clasp enough you can get it out, and don't be afraid of it, you can undo it by more turns if you want. Yeah, that should be free now. There we go. Yeah, that's completely fine there. So that's now released, and then the actual handle is held by this wire thing, so we'll just release that with a fine screwdriver. Yeah, so it's just this little thing here, just pushes out and then the handle pulls out as a result. So that's it. Once you've got that out, then the handle can swivel right out. You can remove the handle, the lock mechanism's free. Okay, so when we undo these bolts on this chassis, we're going to find there's a lot of tension on these wires. So the best thing to do is to release as much as we can from the wires now, so that it won't be so bad later. So first up is that. There it goes. Yeah, I think I will remove these from that panel here. Probably don't have to, but I think it just makes life a bit easier. This just slides off, this thing here, only in one direction there, so you've got to be careful. Okay, maybe you don't need to go through all that trouble, but it definitely frees things up a bit. Makes life a little bit easier. And then before we remove the door panel, the last thing we need to do is just disengage the actual lock, or the latch as VW called it, from the door. To do this, you're going to need a splined bit. So this particular one is an M8 splined bit, and it's to do because they don't want people just taking the locks off indiscriminately. They want to make it hard, so splined bits are pretty rarely used. Okay, now we can go ahead and take the door card off. Now, just before I take it off, just do note there's a little locating lug here, and that's holding it in position. So when you come to put it back on, that's going to be the first thing you're going to want to engage. And as I say, just sort of slides down. It's also got a locating lug just there as well. Slides down and out. I should say before you disconnect the lock mechanism, you should disconnect your battery. First thing I'm going to do, of course, is disconnect the electrical connection. There we go. Next up is the internal door handle cable here. So I'm just going to remove that from this kind of mechanical arm just here. It just sort of twists round to get the flats aligned, and then this just about comes out. You can pull out the rear section. There you go, you can push it out with a screwdriver. And then there's obviously the actual latch which goes up inside the car. You can just about wiggle that out as well. So now you should find that you've got the latch held on by this bracket, this kind of plastic bracket here, which is held into the door card by these two white plastic rivets. Now I ordered replacement rivets to hold it on to the vehicle, and VW sold me 2 pop rivets for 80p. Apparently it's not possible to get these white plastic rivets anymore. You have to use pop rivets, apparently. We will see. Pull it off on it. There it goes. So there's the old one. Okay, let's try clearing these out. Here it comes, 5mm bit. And it's exactly as I said, it's like a plastic outer with a couple of splits, but it's not completely split all the way. It's split about 2/3 of the way down, I would say there. And then an inner, which is like just a solid rivet with a hole in it. That's all it is. Oh, that one just pushed straight out, that one did. Right, okay, so we've got the new lock, and I'm really glad that I took my time ordering it and getting everything right, because it's not as straightforward as you might think. First of all, the old lock's got this sort of plastic weather cover over it, which the new lock doesn't have, so I'm going to swap this over. Secondly, I did order a new one of these, this sort of bracket that fits in here, and I'm really glad I did that, because that comes with the little plastic rivets built into it. They've obviously used the plastic rivet to hold it onto this part here, and you can see it's broken. It's actually broken away, so I'll try and get a nylon bolt to do that, to be honest. If If not, then certainly just a normal bolt with plenty of shape-proof washers on it. Just something that's a bit less than a pop rivet. But that's what we'll do, we'll swap them over. And the other thing I noticed is on the old lot, we've got this sort of rubber surround here, I guess for that perfect sound when you close the car door. On the new one, we do not have that, so I just thought I'd put on a bit of foam, but apparently you have to order the foam separately. So let's get this old weather surround off first. You can see it's just got these little catches that are just holding it on. There it goes, that's the first one. Second one. Okay. This is the old, yeah, so we sort of keep it in our mind's eye of how that goes on. Again, pop that down. Just a little. There we go. There's the old one. Okay, so hole, line up the hole, line up the clip, line up the clip. Yep, so those two clips go straight in. There we go, clip that clip in there, which is good. That's gone in that slot there, which is good. And then I think there was a clip down here. Yeah. So that's gone under there now, let's hold that bit in there. So now that's in, we can go ahead and get the new one of these in. As I said, it's going to go down like that, over there, like so. Now they recommend a pop rivet. I recommend using some common sense. Right, okay, so I'm just going to put a little M4 bolt through this hole here in place of the pop rivet that VW used. What they were thinking, I do not know. I'm going to use a couple of little washers as well, just to spread the load a bit. I'm not going to use locking washers because they will tend to dig into the plastic, but I am using a nylock nut, which obviously will resist vibration, separation, etc. So that should do the trick, hopefully. Okay, there we go, so that's in. That's worth putting those washers on because it just spreads the load a little bit. And that's going to hold it on much better than a pop rivet would. Also just going to Dremel off the end of this. I don't really want it fouling on here. I don't want there to be any chance. It's not quite sticking out as far as this plastic is, but I just don't want there to be any chance of that. So we'll go ahead and get the Dremel on that. Just give it one last tighten up just to make sure. Okay, that's good. Okay, so now that we've got the bracket securely attached to the latch mechanism itself, we can go ahead and get the plastic rivets lined up with the holes in the metal backplate here. Okay, this is just getting these plastic rivets in. So you've got to be careful when you're hitting the rivets on. If you're putting it close to yourself, you're going to be pushing away, but with that on your body, so you've got to be ever so careful. Yeah, there it goes, it's going right in there. Yep, it's working nicely. So that's how to do it. Get a M8 bolt, or an M10 even. Make sure that this is free. Make sure this is absolutely laying perfectly flat on this bit of metal. And then just gently tap. And if it goes off straight like that, you can just tap on one edge. So we'll just tap on the top edge there. Okay, well that's right in now. And if you look on the other side, you can see that they've now splayed out. That's held in really nicely now. So bizarre system though it is, that has now worked. Okay, the last thing we need to remove from the old latch is this bit here, which is the door handle kind of little cable which connects onto this arm here. Just slides on like that. I'm going to remember the direction, so it's got the smaller bit on the inside, so this bit here where it's been painted. In fact, just want to open that up like so. Okay, and that's on perfectly. You can see that flat bit there is meant to align with there, and as it pulls, that bit there pulls. Now before we put this on, there is one other thing we need to do just to prepare it. Okay, so to make sure that the outside door handle is actually going to operate correctly, this is the bit of metal here which is operated by the outside door handle. So to make sure it's got the right amount of tension in it, what we're going to do is just lift this little spring up here and try and pull it in a bit and then drop it back down, so that spring is bearing on here. And the first time it's open, what's going to happen is it's going to clip away from that, so this spring will naturally go back to where it's meant to go, but it's just going to hold this in place while we put the whole assembly back, which is really going to help. I'm going to go ahead and do that on the good one now. Okay, so one thing I've forgotten to do is put this back on, so now that all this is done and ready and we've got that bolt on nicely, we're going to put this on. So it is just a case of getting that hole lined up with that hole, and then this clip and this clip lined up with that hole and that hole. And they're in. And now this needs to sort of be pulled over, clipped in just there, and then this bit here, this bit here wants to go through this slot here, and this clip here wants to go under there, so just need to just pull that out. Okay, and that's nicely in place. That will just protect it from the weather. So now we've got that cover on, we've got our door handle wire all prepared.
Hey, I really hope this video was helpful. If it is, do please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. Back to the video.
Okay, so you've probably taken the door handle out. So in order to get this right, it's really important to be aware of a few things when refitting. First of all, this little plastic section here, it obviously goes through here, and then it actually clips in, and there's a little plastic clip where it clips in. It's just here. It's very important to get the door handle lined up so that that hole there engages with that bit of plastic there. But equally on the other side, this part here, this needs to be properly engaged with this black part of the handle assembly here. So it needs to go right in and behind and pull on that. And to do that, you're going to have to put your hand in there to push that bit of mechanism forward. It's not just going to naturally volunteer itself. So before we put the door card back on, we have got to go ahead and just get that bit of mechanism right forwards and get this bit of handle right in so that it engages on it, like so, like that. There you go, hopefully you can see that. And then once that's on, you can then go ahead and clip the other end into that plastic clip I showed you earlier. In fact, you can see that the door handle's already naturally just gone onto that bit of plastic, so we know that's now right in the right place to go ahead and put the door card back on. Get the lock back on. Okay, those two locators holding it in nicely. We'll just get 3 of these bolts to hold it on. Okay, that's it. Okay, 20 Newton meters is the torque for these bolts. It's the only bolts you're going to need to torque up. Just before I get the window riser on, I'm going to put all of the bolts securing this door panel on, just so it can take the full weight of the glass. Okay, so that panel's secured now. Okay, so I'm just going to get this on just for now, just so we can get the glass. Okay, so now that we've got the 2 bolts located correctly, I'm going to release the tape and I'm going to guide the glass down to engage with these, and then we're going to align it all up and tighten them up. Now that I've got the glass correctly aligned with this side here, I've pushed it all the way over there and I've just held it in place with 1 bit of tape there, which is really all that's needed. I've got the 2 glass lifters and they're both engaged with the glass, and you can feel with your fingers that one side of the clamp, lifter clamp there, is on the other side of the glass and the other side is this side. Yeah, you can see that there's the glass there, there's the clamp, and then the other side of the clamp's the other side of the glass, and ditto on here, you've got the clamp glass, and then the other side of the clamp you can just see the other side. So, as I say, I've been really careful to make sure that this side of the glass is parallel with this part of the door and pushed right the way over, couldn't be pushed any further over. So that's going to be good once we tighten it all up. So I'm just going to go ahead and tighten both these clamps up. They've obviously got rubber in them, so you can tighten them a fair way, they're not going to damage the glass. And in fact, you want them pretty tight, because otherwise glass will be flapping around all over the place. There we go. Okay, so they're done up pretty tight. There's no specified torque for those that I'm aware of. Now I can take this off. And you've got to test it by doing it up and just checking that you've got a decent seal. Just want to check that that's good. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. Okay, so that's good. So we can take this back off now. Now we can put these bungs back into place. And I'll get these wiring loom clips back in. You just be careful, because they've got these weatherproof washers around them, and you don't want those to be lost, because then you'll get water coming in and rotting your door card. Speaker can be plugged back in. This little clip can be slid back on. There it goes. Go in. Okay, so we're all set to go and get the door card back on. Do remember to replace all of these plastic rivets, and if you've broken any you'll need some more, and I'll put the part number in the description. In fact, I'd locate it on the speaker because it's got that cutout which will engage with that connector there, so I'll make sure that it's not at the wrong angle, so that's quite a nice way of getting that in. It's not really made this as hard as possible, isn't it? There we go, that's it. There we go. So now we can offer this back up. Now remember, this has got to go through here, and remember that this lip here has got to engage right the way over here, right the way up to this little bit of felt touching the glass. You want to be behind, you want to be this side of the felt, but the other side of this bit of rubber, so it wants to slot in just here, just in this groove. That's where it wants to slot in, just there, as they say. Okay, so there's the latch. Okay, so that's nicely on the top there, so it wanted to be located right the way over, so you can hardly see the gap between the window and the door there. So now, if you put your fingers behind that, you should feel those plastic rivets, just, certainly the top ones, just engaging with those holes in the door. You push them in, it goes in like that. And again on this one here, you can just see them just lining up. Okay, that's it. So now we've just got the 3 bolts underneath to go. Okay, so now we get the door handle back on. Before we put the door handle back on, obviously we've got to put the bolts on. Long one there. T30. Door handle going back on. Slide it in, that's all good. Window winder back on. All good. Okay, so now that's all been reassembled, let's just give it a quick test. Final test. There we go. Central locking, both sides working from the driver's side and from the passenger side. Both sides working from the passenger side. There we go, beautiful. And that is how you change the locking latch in your VW Polo. Hope that helps.